Let's transition into SJSU men's basketball, Jonathan. You and I were in the building on Tuesday night as the Spartans were hosting the UNLV Rebels. SJSU falls 77-71 in another tight game. I guess the headlines heading into that game where both teams were banged up. No Deedon Thomas Jr. for UNLV, and who knows how long they're without him. I know there's been some rumors circulating around that he's done for the year, but who knows? I mean, Coach Kevin Kruger hasn't ruled that out, but he was out this game, and SJSU was out Will McClendon. We know Josh Adouje's back. He returned in the road trip, and a game where it just a team where they were limited with bodies in this game coming in, and the fact that you lose even more in a point guard and Donovan Yap is just even more frustrating. SJSU is down to 7 active players in this game. Kruger only played 7 players, but he's got more active players than that, even though he's been without Rob Whaley and Jace Whiting this year. But, man, this is almost a repeat of last year, Jonathan, where San Jose State was dealing with that flu where, you know, everybody lost like 20 pounds. Everybody got it at different times, and you could see that, you know, that group last year was just out of whack with the flu.
Cardenas had it worst, I think, out of all of them.
I think he did. And then they lost all kinds of bodies. Like Christian Wise got hurt. I mean, the list just kept going on. And by the end, Tim Miles was eking out like a first-round game versus Colorado State with like 6 players, it seemed like, and he almost won the game. This year, unfortunately, almost seems like we're heading into that direction with all the banged-up bodies here. I mean, the Donovan Yap injury, no Rob Viola. Those are, you can argue, your 2 primary ball handlers within this offense, and who knows when they come back.
Yeah, man, it's tough, and you're already down Will McClendon and Rob Viola to start the game, and, you know, Donovan Yap, credit to him in his 12 minutes of action. And I got to ask Josh if it would have been a different result. I mean, this guy dished out 5 assists in his 12 minutes of action. He was on pace to, you know, be a crazy facilitator in this game, and I think it would have been a entirely different type of game if he was in it. But hey, credit to the Spartans for, you know, coming out here and trying to fight as much as you did with 7 guys in the lineup. Even Steven Vasquez, your bench is depleted too, and let alone like 3 starters. Like, you can't turn to anybody else. Pasha Kadarz, you had to get some minutes out there just to get Latrell Davis some rest, and Jermaine Washington. But man, the Spartans, they can't really be head down right now. You still got Josh Adouje, one of the better players in the Mountain West. He was able to carry you in that win over in Laramie for the first time in program history. So, man, I think he's capable of just being that Omari Moore type of guy. Like, even if you're missing, like, you know, call me crazy, Nick, even if you're missing like 2 guys to carry a team to a win and possibly even a Mountain West tournament win. Obviously, we got to see and wait on the results of these other 3 guys who are pending, a big 3, obviously. But for some reason, my hopes are still high when you got Josh Adouje in the starting lineup and someone like Latrell Davis had 16 points off the bench. You got those 2 guys. My head isn't going to be too down. And, you know, shout out to Jermaine and Sada and Ghana for kind of filling in that role. Jermaine Washington had 10 points, double-digit figures, and Ghana was out there doing his best Donovan Yap impression, career high 4 assists. So, you know, some of these guys, I mean, you got to have that next man up mentality. I know it's a cliche when you say it, but when you're losing 3 starters, you got a couple of guys who are injured on the bench as well. That can hit your morale. We saw it last year. I think it hit them a lot last year. And with these guys, you know, a couple of games left, I think they got to get at least 1 win. And I'm more so looking at obviously that Fresno State game. Yeah,
Fresno's just an absolute free fall, even more than what they were like 2 months ago.
Hey, but, you know, technically, you know, I'm only going to touch on this lightly, but they'll beat out 3 guys, and who knows what will beat out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it kind of evens the odds, and it's still a rivalry game. Rivalry games, you know, at senior night, you also kind of toss it out the window. It can go any other way.
So Yap has the foot injury. He was, so his mom was in the building.
Yeah.
And his mom was in the building because his brother, Demarion Yap, is on UNLV. So,
man, I wish he touched the floor. Come on, Kruger, play some mind games.
Right? Yeah. I mean, he's been in very limited games. Like, he's only played in like the bye games for UNLV this year during the non-con slate. So Yap's got the foot injury. McClendon changed his hairstyle, got rid of the dreads, but he's still out. And those are like the 2 main guys. And Rob Viola, you're down 3 starters. Coach Coach Miles going to give really a timetable for anybody, and
Yeah.
I honestly don't expect them to. We can get an update, coming out of the bye. Thank goodness for this team that they are off this weekend.
Seriously.
They don't play till next Tuesday at Colorado State, which
I hate that matchup.
is probably a scheduled loss for this team, which, to be honest, sure, Miles versus Medved. I know Coach Miles always, for the most part, has played Medved tough over the years, but that's just one of those games where you'd rather have the players be healthy for a Fresno State senior game and the Mountain West tournament. Even if you don't play 3 guys, versus Colorado State. It's one of those things, you'd rather have these guys back for the tournament in a first-round game versus Wyoming in a potential situation where if New Mexico wins the regular season, you have a second-round matchup versus New Mexico, who you've matched up well with this year. So hold guys out until they're absolutely 100%, and it's one of those things we'll probably get some more clarity on the situation and what these injuries look like. Maybe not the Colorado State game, but probably the Fresno game. But as far as this game's concerned, Jonathan, UNLV, I thought, did a really good job without Deaton Thomas. Henley had a career high in this game with this 22. I had some worries with Bear Cherry. I know Bear Cherry's been all over this place this year, and the UNLV fan base has been on one heck of a roller coaster ride with this guy. He's like Anthony Davis in the playoffs. He has one good game and then one tremendously bad game. That's kind of been the story with Cherry this year, the JUCO transfer, and he had himself a good game, 14-6. And the Rishwain threes hurt him, and Bedford has been a boost for them off the bench, the Oral Roberts transfer. As far as UNLV, I mean, a good game to, I guess, readjust the offense.
Sure.
I think they'll be feisty in the first-round matchup versus whoever they play in the Mountain West tournament, but if they're without Thomas, man, it's hard to buy into this team, for winning 4 games in 4 days.
Yeah, I think we'll learn a lot about them in that game against Nevada coming up as well.
Point.
So, they're 1-1 without Deaton Thomas, but you got a rivalry game, an in-state rivalry game, and kind of like the SJSU Fresno State one, you kind of just throw it out the window. Doesn't matter who's on the floor or who's not. We're gonna learn a lot about these guys, and I'm imagining Kruger's still gonna be playing 7 people going out there in Nevada. So hopefully, for their sake, they can kind of muster up a win there because they desperately need it, and they got to get that chemistry going without their main man out there, dishing assists. And not only did Henley have the 22 points, he had 5 assists, the most out of every Rebel out there. So I'm assuming this offense might run through him in the starting lineup, and when Bedford comes in, he'll probably, dig in the rest. So, and just to get on Jeremiah Bear Cherry, just to, save him a little bit. Rob Whaley's been out, obviously since the whole beginning of the season.
He wasn't supposed to start this year.
Yeah, leave the JUCO transfer alone. He's trying his best out there, and it probably helped that obviously Robbie V wasn't out there, guarding him in the paint.
Yeah.
He was eating in the boards, and I think him and Pop Benjai have been doing, or at least in this game against SJSU, did a solid job as far as the big man rotation went, because those only 2 big men you really got, or at least that Kevin Kruger is choosing to play. And, if he's choosing to play those 2 guys, they won the rebounding battle as well, 38-31. It must be for a reason. And if all of these guys can, I'm not focusing on, the center. I'm focusing on the guys like Jaden Hill, Jaden Henley, Rishwain, the vets who are on this team who have a lot to prove. I'm turning to those guys, not your center, because they've been struggling before this SJSU game. And I'm expecting them to kind of play with this same momentum going into Nevada. A big game for both Nevada teams, right? Who both kind of had an up and down type of year. But I think a bigger one for UNLV, who is going to be hosting the tournament itself in 2 weeks. So, and we know how crazy that crowd can get over at UNLV. So I think just for their sake, getting that win in Nevada, it's in Reno, right?
The game is in Vegas.
Oh, it's in Vegas. Okay,
yeah,
that helps a ton more. Wow.
They already played in Reno.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, as far as some other Tuesday Mountain West games, we could just recap the scores. I know we were at the game in our backyard here in San Jose, so didn't really get to catch too much of these games, but Colorado State wins by 22 at Air Force, 77-55. Nevada over Wyoming, 84-61. We got to talk about that Wyoming team in a minute. And New Mexico and San Diego State, that was like the premier Tuesday night game. San Diego State 73-65. New Mexico just got done with that gauntlet of a schedule where they hosted Utah State, then they went to Boise, and then went to Viejas Arena against these Aztecs. They went 1-2 in that stretch, which if I would have said 1-2 in that stretch, and the one game you win is against Utah State, who's behind you in the standings, I would say not the biggest thing in the world, especially the way we'll talk about this game as well. Utah State and Boise State, the result there with the Aggies losing in Boise, Idaho last night. So not the biggest, worry in the world for New Mexico going 1-2 in that brutal stretch. But John, I think for the big thing for New Mexico, I mean, Dent is really good. We all know that. He's got 26. True Washington, he's one of the main X factors to me, because when this guy drops 10 points or more, they're undefeated, the Lobos. They're like 16-0 when he drops 10 or more. And basically, like, when they lose, like, or if he has, like, when the games that the New Mexico does drop, he's in single digits as far as points. So he is massive as far as their success. If he has a bad shooting night, then they're just all reliant on Dent and Junior Joseph, which in the NCAA tournament, with how good these teams are going to be, I'm not so sure. Like, they're going to need Washington's contributions. And Mustafa Amzil, we know he's been working with this plantar fasciitis. He only played 15 minutes in this game versus San Diego State. He's a big part of that team. I think that injury is still hurting him. If I'm New Mexico, like, just hold him out until the Mountain West tournament. Like, there's no reason to play him right now. You could win your games. Like, they play Air Force and, like, I don't know who their other game is, but it's pretty soft, New Mexico's schedule down the stretch here.
Yeah, UNLV is their last game after that.
Okay, UNLV.
In New Mexico, in the pit.
Okay, so you got 2 games at the pit. I think if I'm New Mexico, rest Amzil and, ride out with what you got. Jovan Milicevic has actually been good off the bench for them since the Amzil injury. So it's all about New Mexico's depth. And, if True Washington could, play good consistently in these games from an offensive perspective and get them a dozen points every game, dude, they're going to be a tough team to beat. But for me personally, I thought that San Diego State game was definitely a scheduled loss. And, John, since San Diego State came to San Jose, Nick Boyd has just been incredible. I mean, this guy had a season high in San Jose. He had a career high, I think, in Utah State. Like, he's been going off. This game, he has 17 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists in the win versus the Lobos. Somebody had to step up for San Diego State. They're doing this without Magoon Guaf, too, which who knows when he comes back. Brian Dutcher, man. I mean, we say it every week. We're saying it every time at this time of year. I don't know how this guy does it.
Yeah, and thankfully he kind of caught New Mexico, like you said, on a time where, they've been dealing with a couple of games. It's two in a row they've dropped all of a sudden. And that's kind of surprising. I don't know, they can get that win, obviously, before their last game. But that UNLV game kind of scares me for their sake. I mean, you got Utah State and Colorado State right up their alley, trying to get, that first place regular season Mountain West chip, or at least. So a couple of these guys, they got to be careful. Colorado State, I don't know, Nick. I feel like all of a sudden they can come in here and kind of just steal the whole thing if New Mexico and Utah State aren't too careful. And, all of a sudden this thing has become a three-way type of thing up for grabs. And I don't know. Anybody can kind of pull away for it. Utah State just had a bad loss as well against Boise State last night, was that?
Yeah, it was.
And, yeah.
Was that considered a bad loss, though? I would say no.
You don't think so? Well,
No.
for the first place sake, sure. I would
Right.
say so. They're still fighting for the Mountain West chipper here. Yeah.
At-large NCAA tournament, that
Yeah,
won't
Boise
hurt them.
needed that more for their
Yeah.
at-large tournament, for sure.
Right.
They were playing with some more passion. But Utah State was hyped before that game, man. They were over here dancing and stuff. Pre-game, obviously getting the juices going. And to me, they just kind of fell flat in that. I wasn't expecting, a complete beatdown, as opposed to,
Right.
being just kind of close neck and neck. This one was Boise State controlled it and kind of controlled it in the second half and just got away.
Utah State won there last year in overtime. Like, Ian Martinez, the game was so crazy last year. I could remember Omar Stanley was at the free throw line. He had a chance to, like, ice the game. Or not ice the game, but, like, he was up to, Boise State was. Stanley was shooting his second free throw. He misses it, Ian Martinez grabs the rebound, and in the span of 3 seconds goes to coast and lays it up and in. And they go to overtime, and Utah State wins over there, steals the game. I mean, that was the story for Utah State last year. They were just stealing games on the road. They've even done so in some spots this year, but not as much compared to last year's crazy team with Sprinkle. As far as Colorado State, you talked them backdooring the regular season title. I don't think it's going to happen because they face Utah State
At home
this weekend, or excuse me, next week. Or no, that's this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, this weekend on Saturday, March 1st.
That crowd can get crazy, just as crazy as Utah State, and I think they can come away with the win over there, man.
Now that's the true coin flip game.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you who's going to win that. That's the game Utah State can actually win on the road, but Colorado State's been great at home. And
quietly, too. Nobody's
well.
in the Mountain West is over here talking about Colorado State, and I think that's when they're most dangerous. So I don't know, man. If they can kind of pull that away, I would. If I'm New Mexico, I'd be a little bit worried if Colorado State can pull away with this win when Utah State comes into town.
Then they have San Jose on Tuesday and then Boise. They're at Boise next weekend to close out the regular season.
So if you can get that win, at Boise too. So 2 tough games out of the 3.
I think New Mexico's schedule is just too easy, man.
Yeah.
They got the 2 home games. I think they're gonna take care of business. I said I wanted to talk about that Wyoming team real quick, just because this is gonna be the first round matchup for San Jose State.
Sure.
I mean, I think this is a real conversation we need to have. Who's going to win so San Jose State's matched up good with Wyoming this year. Wyoming is just not the greatest team. I think we know that. Sundance Wicks just doesn't have the weaponry this year. But if San Jose State, let's just call it, they're down 2 starters, could SJSU pull off a W in round 1 on the neutral?
2 starters, yes. 3, I don't know. 3 is way too much for me. We kind of saw it already at that game at Wyoming when Josh Aduje just basically had a legacy game over there going toe-to-toe with Obi Ogbum all day. He had 29. Obi had 20. But if you're down 3 starters, man, against Wyoming, maybe this is like, playoff type of basketball reference, but you can beat a team twice, sure, man. Beating them 3 times, I think that's the hardest thing to do.
I knew you were gonna roll that out.
Sorry, okay, that's more of an NFL reference.
Sure.
Yeah, there you go.
No,
but
I guess
it's just so hard, I think, man, to do it 3 times.
I get it.
Yeah, and on top of that, you're dealing with major injuries, and not to call certain guys out, but you got certain guys in slumps too, kind of starting to get their way out of it. So Adrian Hall had 0 points the last time out here, and I know he had a few steals, rebounds here and there, but the Spartans, if Donovan Yap, McClendon, and Viola aren't back anytime soon, they're gonna need him to step up. And thankfully, the great part for Adrian Hall is he had his best conference game against Wyoming at Laramie to kind of complement Josh Aduje. But I'm at the point where even if some guys are healthy, maybe you should play them at Fresno State just to kind of get the momentum, get that chemistry going, because asking them to beat them 3 times, and if your starters aren't in there, I think that's a tough ask. And I think Wyoming can pull away if you're missing 3 people. Now, if you're missing 2, and you either get either Donovan Yep or Viola back, that's an entirely different story.
Right.
Yeah, and I think if you're missing 2, then you got Josh Aduje there. I think he can will you in there with the win, as well as Latrell Davis coming off the bench. You need more bodies. I don't want to see 7 guys on the bench. I understand that it's Mountain West tournament time, and guys are probably going to end up playing like 35 minutes anyways, but if you don't have the body, if you don't have the bodies there, hey man, we saw Sundance Wicks go to like 12 deep the first time they came over here, and I don't know if he's obviously might not do that in the Mountain West tournament, but just having that option of going into your bench, I think Wyoming can look to take advantage of it, and they're playing with the chip on their shoulder too. They started off the season kind of hot. They played some opponents hot. They should have won at New Mexico.
They started 5-1.
Yeah, man, I like this team. Obi Ogbum has kind of slowed his roll down and. In terms of points per game, but he's still got complimentary pieces over there.
If you shut him down, though,
yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah,
you shut him down. I'll say this: like, if you get OB Agbim in a bad shooting game, no offense to Wyoming, but there's very limited amount of guys that can hurt you with like a 20-point game.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Compared to SJ, I know like they'll need to play perfect. But I think they'll be, regardless, I think if you can get 1 or 2 of the guys back, that the circumstance I think definitely does favor the Spartans, at least for a round 1 game, which for a roster that's older, with Donovan Yap as a senior,
Yeah.
Josh Aduje as a senior, no eligibility remaining. You know,
Adrian Hall.
Adrian Hall, grad student, Chol Mariel, grad student.
Yeah.
You wanna go out, obviously on senior day on a good note in your final home game here in San Jose, but you want to go out, you know, in the Mountain West tournament to say, hey, like, at least get yourself a game, move on to the second day, and you know, all of that stuff. You don't want to be one and done in that tournament. And I think you know, SJSU, we talked about it, John. Like, the stock has definitely gone down on this team, but I think that's got to do a large majority of just with the injuries and all of that stuff that they face. So we'll see where things go from there. As far as some big picture college hoop stuff, did you see the ending to Michigan State last night?
I did. Who made that crazy half court?
Trey Holloman.
Holloman, dude. That guy's a beast, dude. And you got
I
a
love
whole
their
bunch of
guards,
Atkins
man.
kind of complimenting everybody there. They're so dangerous. They were underdogs going into that game, and I was kind of surprised by that.
Well, that was like the biggest game in Maryland for, like, you know, just home game.
Yeah.
Like, in forever, it seemed like.
Yeah, you're
seemed
right.
Like 2-3 years.
And
like, there hasn't been this much buzz in College Park in, like, a long while.
They have a good team, man.
They do.
And did you see the first half? It was like 22-21 or something like that. I was like, what's this defensive battle the first half?
Yeah, I felt like I was watching, I don't know, just like a San Diego State game. Just
Yeah.
Like, San Diego State versus St. John's.
Yeah, that's a good compare. 55-52 is not like a high scoring game. So credit to both those coaches. I mean, Michigan State got lucky, obviously, you know, on that half court shot by Holloman, but
What's Maryland doing though with Jacoby Gillespie taking that shot with 3 seconds though?
I didn't mind it because what gets me more mad is the transition defense and letting Holloman go up there unscathed, untouched, and even getting a shot attempt. I think they were expecting him to just kind of completely
But you
miss.
play for one in that situation. You either go to overtime,
Sure.
or you hit the game winner and you storm the court.
Yeah, I get that, but still, I necessarily didn't mind it. Just from I was expecting it to go to OT. Nobody was expecting Holloman to get a half court shot going, and all of a sudden, Michigan State Spartans are looking like this havoc, man, going into March Madness. I think they're the team, I already told you my top four, but they're one of these top teams to watch going into it, and they're getting some road wins on top of their home wins. That's impressive, man. And going into a hostile environment and shutting a team down to like 52 points, that's hard to do.
So in the last 10 days, won at Illinois, at Michigan, and at Maryland.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Exposed a couple of teams on the process doing it.
Yeah. You already know our love for St. John's. They climbed 3 spots in the AP poll. This team's up to 7th in America now. They escaped the dangerous spot last night versus Butler at, just a game that I thought was a little bit dangerous for them. They're 24-4 overall. They swept UConn in an embarrassing game on Sunday. UConn's no good
They won
this year.
last night.
Yeah.
I think they played Georgetown.
Who did, UConn?
Yeah.
I think you're right. And St. John's looks great. They keep climbing the polls. I'll tell you what, John. Houston and Texas Tech on Monday night. So I got to watch the second half live this game. Texas Tech had no Darian Williams and no Chance McMillan, so 2 starters basically. They were neck and neck with Houston, man.
For a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, for the fine, I would say from the game was so low scoring where, in the final 2 minutes, it was out of reach, but they were just hanging around. That's going to be probably top 3 most physical game I've seen all year.
Between these two teams?
Tech and Houston. It was insane, man. And Houston games are always physical, but Texas Tech can actually match the physicality of that team.
Yeah, and if Williams, was healthy to go along with McMillan,
they would have won the game.
Yeah, I believe so too. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes in the stands.
That's a bad. I'll tell you what. A full strength. Yeah, I saw that. A full strength Iowa State and a full strength Texas Tech can beat Houston.
Yeah, I agree. Houston's not the same as last year, not the same team, but defensively, I don't want to see them at all. They're still one of the best defensive teams in the country.
I put this out on Twitter the other day, and I said,
X.
Yeah, same malarkey. Houston. So this team always deals with injuries in March Madness, at the worst time.
That's
Remember,
true.
Shed tore his ACL last year, or had a bad injury. They always get the wrong injury. They always hit the injury bug in the first round of the tournament, or just coming out of the Big 12 or the American Conference tournament. They were in the American a few years ago, and This year, like, I just hope that doesn't happen for them. I just can't believe, like, this team, their team looks as good as it did last year, but, like, I just don't think they're going to win the Big 12
just
tourney
not
this
buying
year.
in, yeah.
I think they'll go deeper in March this year. Like, I think they will be in the Final Four this year.
Really?
Yes.
That's crazy, actually.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because, so their defense, their rebounding, I've never seen a team rebound, like, more crazy than them. Like, 5 guys are going for boards on that team. It's insane. And for Houston, they've had Milos Uzon emerge out of nowhere at the point guard position. He had a career high, like, 26 points versus Tech on Monday night. Like, the past 10 games, he's been on a heater. He's the ultimate difference maker to me. All those other guys are old, but he's like the new face for them this year, replacing Shed. And I didn't think they were going to be able to replace Shed. That's why I was kind of down on them this year. Compared to previous teams.
Sure.
So, man, I think as long as they don't get hurt, I think I'm going to have them in my Final Four bracket when we're talking here in 3 weeks.
That's kind of crazy. How about Florida, too? Did you watch the Georgia?
Florida and Georgia?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, despite Florida losing the game against Georgia, first of all, Georgia was due for one of these big games, like to win one finally.
I'm more impressed with Florida in this game, dude.
The fact that they were down 20-something.
They were down by 30, dude.
They were down by 30?
They were 30 plus, yes.
And they came all the way back just to lose barely.
They had a lead at one point, dude, with like
impressive.
2 minutes left, and then Georgia pulled away. But just the fact that they had a lead with like a couple minutes left in the game is insane, man. And I'm with you there. Georgia was just kind of due for a win. They kind of have to win out if they want to even like think about getting into the March Madness tournament. And this obviously helps a lot for Georgia's sake. They're a great defensive team, man. DeMary had 21 points in that one, and Florida just did not stop trying to come back. They're one of my teams right here, number 3 ranked. Obviously going to fall with this Georgia loss, but they're one of my teams right here in the top 4 going into it in the Final Four. I was very impressed with the loss that these guys had, which is something I'm just kind of baffled by saying. Georgia completely just fell apart the last half.
Okay, so let's just call it like this. How many teams in the SEC are not going to make it to the NCAA tournament? Because I would say South Carolina, LSU, and Oklahoma are the only teams.
Hey, Oklahoma almost beat Kentucky.
Dude, they're 4-11.
I know, but that was a great game.
No, I get it.
But
I think Arkansas's in.
No way, dude.
Dude, they beat...
By name only, they'll go. They beat Texas
Saturday?
yesterday, a couple days ago. Oh, Saturday? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
they beat Missouri.
Okay, dude, that's a top
Missouri's
15
ranked, yeah. Missouri, they haven't impressed me too much going up against, the actual other top 25.
I think Arkansas is going to be in, dude.
Yeah, they have a couple
I don't know
of great
about Georgia.
wins.
Georgia's one of those teams, man, where
I like Georgia.
they'll get the big win on Florida the other night, and then they'll drop the next game.
Yeah, that's very true.
Like what? They play like they're at Texas, out South Carolina. I'll tell you what, best job, SEC Coach of the Year, hands down, needs to go to Mark Byington for Vanderbilt.
Nate Oates still exists, dude.
Vanderbilt. This team is supposed to be no good.
They just
in year one. Okay,
they were ranked earlier in the year.
In year one, 19-9. They're 7-8 in the Gauntlet SEC. But dude, they won at A&M last night. They're a lock for the tournament now.
Yeah, I agree. I don't mind it.
I just can't believe for how big of a disaster it was with Jerry Stackhouse all those years.
He's on the Warrior staff now.
Mark Byington coming over from James Madison, man, and he's got this.
James Madison started like 14-0 last year.
And he was the coach that brought him to the tournament. I'm just saying, I think he needs to be Coach of the Year.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. I know you got Auburn. I know you got Florida. I know you got all those teams, and I know that might sound foolish, that you're going to give the team that's in 10th place in the SEC Coach of the Year, but that's just been incredible to me for what he's done, and he's going to get him dancing. Anything else we got on college hoops, John? I know in our good old WCC, St. Mary's got the sweep.
I was just reading my mind right now. I couldn't believe they got Gonzaga right there, and now they're ranked 23rd, visiting MJ Amy and company over at Loyola Marymount tonight at 8 p.m. to the last game of the night. Just want to give St. Mary's some love because all of a sudden Gonzaga started to fall apart this year. I'm just kind of surprised by the loss over there.
Smashed Santa Clara.
Yeah, I mean, they were just kind of taking their anger out.
They were mad for losing that game at the Kennel.
I mean, I would be too. You're kind of beating a team that's a little bit below you there.
Man,
Congratulations.
I'm worried about for St. Mary's. I love this team every single year.
You're talking about worried about March Madness when it comes down to it?
That they're going to just get the bad matchup. Like last year's matchup versus Grand Canyon was like a disaster.
Yeah.
They can't have like the ultra athletic team in the first round. And remember, they faced UConn 2 years ago when UConn was the juggernaut and they smashed everybody, and they were the best team against them. And then they had an injury to one of their starters, and they just fell apart. So it just seems like this team always gets unlucky in March for how good they are. In one of these games, they haven't even won the WCC tournament, man. They've swept Gonzaga 2 straight years. They've won 4 in a row against them. And Gonzaga just finds a way to win the conference tourney.
And they might do it again this year for all we know.
I mean, would it shock me? But
you think St. Mary's obviously like automatically in though?
Yes.
Even if they lose.